And welcome back to another episode of Down with O-Pee-Chee. We have hit one for the thumb. We are on episode number 5 as we speak. I am Tom Franklin, your host, bringing you the unveiling of a 1990-1991 box of O-Pee-Chee hockey cards. And we're opening them 2 at a time. 2 more packs, actually a total of 4 packs coming this episode. I'll explain what's going on here for you right now. I cheated, okay? I went ahead and opened up 2 more packs just to see if there are any highlights, anything that because the last pack opening, to be quite honest with you, was a little bit of a dud. I'll admit that to you right now, even though that, you know, we have a new setup here that's a little bit better in terms of sound. But I want to see if I can get some highlights here just real quick for you. And I did get a couple. First one, this one you see right here, Adam Oates. One half of Hull and Oates. Take a look at some of his particulars there. By the way, I'm very happy with how my camera performed, by the way. I'm just going to toot my camera's horn here right now. Whenever I looked at this on YouTube just now, you can see the back pretty darn good. So, especially once you, if you don't blow it up, I think when you blow it up it gets a little pixely. If you watch it at its regular window size, it's okay. But anyway, this is Adam Oates. As you can see, some of his stuff here. This was his second year as a St. Louis Blue. Had 79 assists in his first year with the Blues. Almost an assist per game playing on the line with Brett Hull. You can see that he is one of the NHL's most skillful playmakers, though he's not fast. His set-up vision and soft touch guide his passes through. Adam Oates, a great player there for sure. Glad to have him aboard. You can see some of their players here. Chris Terreri, not a big deal. Artur Urbe, they're missing an S. Artur Urbe was his name. He would make his debut in the NHL a couple years later. But this is one of those Soviet Red Army cards. He played for Dynamo Riga, or Riga, one of the two. Again, Soviet Hockey Federation is not the most open on their stats. John Druce, right winger for the Capitals. Don't remember him. Yuri Erdina. Don't remember much of him either. Let me flip him around here, see if he... Yeah, he wasn't really anyone that was of note. Although they do say he was a key member of several strong Czech international teams and joins an already stellar cast in Calgary. Like many Europeans, he took some time adjusting to the smaller ice surfaces here stateside. So Yuri Erdina. This is an interesting card right here. This is a Wayne Gretzky card. It's actually the #1 card of this whole entire, as you can see, #1. But it's also the #1 card in this deck. And this is an Indianapolis Press article. Ironic since I live in Fort Wayne. Gretzky, who started his glorious professional hockey career here in 1978 with the Indianapolis Racers, today became the NHL's all-time leading point scorer with a game-tying goal with 53 seconds remaining in the 3rd period of a 5-4 overtime victory over the Edmonton Oilers at Northlands Coliseum, October 15th of 1989. You forget that he started his career with the Indianapolis Racers. He played 8 games, scored 3 goals, recorded 3 assists before being traded along with Peter Driscoll and Ed Mio to Edmonton for future considerations. Paul Coffey, all-star defenseman, all-time great defenseman, great scoring defenseman. Paul Coffey, one of the Sutter Butters, Dwayne Sutter here, right winger. Another Red Army card. This one was no one of note. Igor Milikin. Next one, Sergei Malinkov, a goalie for the Nordiques, probably was a part of the Red Army team at one point. John Chabot, center. Mark Fitzpatrick, a goaltender for the Islanders. Alex McGillney for the Sabres. He was a youngster at this point, had some great seasons, and then he just kind of fell off the face of the earth. Kind of a weird player. But anyway, he was a very young player here, once regarded as the most talented teenage player in the world. Alexander defected from the USSR after the 1988 Olympics. Got to re-cue up my music there. There we go. And yeah, he defected from the USSR after the 1988 Olympics. As a rookie, he tried too often to beat defenses all by himself. But with his electrifying speed, he is a potential superstar. Too bad later in his career, he did not give a crap. Doug Evans, left winger for the Jets. Also, Vyacheslav Fetisov, defenseman, former Red Army player for the Devils at this time. Of course, will go on to some fame later on with the Red Wings. So, Fetisov describes him as, after the Soviet AHL Rendezvous Series in '87, Wayne Gretzky called Vyacheslav the greatest defenseman he'd ever played against. He anchors the Devils' power play, often moving up into the slot. Returned to Soviets for the 1990 World Championships. Brian Trottier, at this time he had to have been about 50 years old. Of course, he was with the Penguins. He moved on to the Penguins, but of course he was a long-time New York Islander, played with the Islanders for his entire career, was still a productive player as well as he got older in his career. This is a Nordiques team card. See some of their stats here. If you want to take a pause real quick and look at them, go for it. But we're going to move on here. This is the Central Red Army checklist. So you can see back here, we take a look at the checklist of all these Red Army players. Of course, we got our Big Daddy here, 19 Federov, already in the bag. And then we had one more Red Army card here, is Dmitry Moltkov. So yes, I cheated. I opened up another pack. Nothing, a few interesting names, nothing too big. Definitely no cards that are worth anything. Of course, the cards that are worth something can be found below in the description. Let's open up a new pack here. We're going to show these cards the world for the first time since 1990, 25 years in the making. Of course, these cards are making their debut. Gum is starting to stick to some of these. I'm not liking that very much. I noticed that in the last packs that I opened up. So, ooh, got a big one coming up. I'm going to flip this guy up around here. This is the Central Red Army card. This is the Chronicle of the Super Series. This Super Series was, of course, a series where the Red Army took on a few NHL teams. And taking a look right here as I get my card list set up here, because we might have a card that's worth something here. We'll take a look in just a little bit. This is a Super Series. You can pause, take a look at some of the scores. Red Army, of course, was a dominant team. Did not lose except for once to... They lost to Pittsburgh. They lost to Buffalo in '89. In 1990, they lost to Winnipeg, and then they swept Vancouver, Minnesota, Chicago, Philadelphia. So there you go, the Super Series. I'm going to take a look here. Unfortunately, our next card here belongs to Ray Bourque, which is not the unfortunate part. The unfortunate part is that his card here is not worth anything, but Ray Bourque, he was the Norris Trophy winner heading into this season. There's some of his stuff there. All-time great. You will all know about him. Next guy here is a left winger, Mike Hartman for the Buffalo Sabres. Goon, 316 penalty minutes. Then followed it up with a 211 points penalty minutes season. An effective defensive player, but his most important role with the Sabres is to neutralize the opposition's toughest players and rack up a lot of penalty minutes. Okay, last part was added by me. Wayne Leslie, a solid defensive player for a long time, notably with the Whalers/Hurricanes defenseman, and decent offensive defenseman. Good skater, good speed, agility, and there you go, Gwen Wesley, at the time with the Bruins. Shane Corson, a longtime Canadian, future St. Louis Blue center for the Canadiens at this time. See, he's been in the league for a few years by now. Consistent hard-hitting power forward, strong skating and intensity make him an excellent forechecker. And of course, because I am a Blues fan, I have to talk about him in the context as a St. Louis Blues fan. Shane Corson, I will always remember him for the Western Conference Game 7, where the Blues and Red Wings went to overtime. Of course, this was the year that the Blues had Gretzky. Corson had a breakaway, and if he knew how to lift the puck on a breakaway, the Blues would have gone to the Stanley Cup that year, because he was all alone on a breakaway. He had the goalie dead to rights, but he whiffed on the shot. Of course, we all remember this 1996 Western Conference Finals for being the famous Steve Yzerman over John Casey slap shot to have the Red Wings go on to one of many Stanley Cup Finals and take the Blues out of the playoffs. Year that the Blues had Gretzky. I can go on. I'm not, because I'm in a good mood. We have Sergei Yashin, a left winger for Dynamo Riga. I don't think this is Alexei Yashin. This can't be. It must be his brother or something. But anyway, see some of his stats there. Again, stats were not the most open. 86, he had 7 points with Dynamo Moscow. Then, I guess 2 years he disappeared, and then he came back and played for Riga and got a goal in 7 games. So, Sergei the Lesser Yashin. Great all-time player right here. Al McGuinness. At this time, he was with the Calgary Flames. Not one of the cards we're looking for in terms of like actual value, but he was one of my favorite players growing up as a St. Louis Blue. Of course, the Blues got him for Phil Housley, as I mentioned in a previous podcast here, or video cast, or video blog, or whatever you want to call it. See some of his stuff right there. He is an all-star, and he is a Hall of Famer. Member of the St. Louis Blues front office now. So, there we go. Dave Babbage, nice hard-hitting defenseman, this time with the Whalers. Flip his card around. And he was actually more than a hard-hitting defenseman, I gotta say. He, good, decent two-way guy, because he can also distribute the puck as well. So Dave Babbage, see his stuff there. And finally, Dave Ellett, defenseman for the Winnipeg Jets. I know he bounced around a little bit. And I think he played a little bit with the Leafs, and then of course I think he ended his career with the St. Louis Blues. Yes, another former Blue. Go figure. Move his card up a little bit so you can see. Excellent skater. Often rushes up the ice as a fourth attacker. Remember being a really good offensive defenseman as well, but he could also play some D as well. Dave Babbage. Okay. One more card to open here. One more pack of cards to open, rather. We're gonna open her up right here. Ooh, got a really good card here. You can see him right there. He'll be the last and certainly not least of this pack. Well, we got a repeat of the Soviet Red Army set here, as this is the second appearance that Dmitry Kristich has made. This time he was a very young guy. He was about 24 years of age. He would make it to the NHL not too much longer after this. Good forward for a long time in the NHL. You've seen him already, though. Keith Brown, defenseman for the Chicago Blackhawks. Don't remember him very much. Of course, again, when it comes to I was about 5-6 years old when this set of hockey cards came out, so I'm a little foggy on some players from this era. I do apologize, but some older fans have laughed at me at the past for not remembering some of the more obscure hockey players. Kelly Rudy, the rude one, the goalie for the LA Kings while Gretzky was there. See some of his stats right there. Played mostly with the Islanders up until this point, joined the Kings during the 88-89 season, and was their goalie for a long time. He's one of the elite netminders, despite the fact he had a goals against average over 4, which would be unelite nowadays, but that was the NHL back then, where you scored, and then you scored some more. So there you go, Kelly Rudy. And we move on now to Gord Kluzak, a defenseman for the Boston Bruins. Have no idea who this guy is. Take a look at some of his stuff in the back here, and top defender if his knee holds out. That's kind of a damning with faint praise right there. So we're going to move on to a repeat. Actually, it's not a repeat so much. Ray Bourque making a second appearance this episode. Second appearance in as many packs, so this is a different card of his. Flip him around, and yes, Ray Bourque, you know who he is. Pause if you want to read his stuff, otherwise I'm going to move on because we've already met Ray Bourque this episode. This is a checklist of 90-91. We can see we already got the Gretzky Tribute card, number 1. That was from the one of the packs that I opened and cheated. More cards on the back here, so there you go. Moving on, Jim Johnson, defenseman for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And most defensive-minded backliner for the Pens. Jim averages less than a shot per game, but is rarely making a defensive mistake. So Jim Johnson for you right there. Doug Gilmour. That's going to end our episode here with the Flames at this point. Was only a Flame for a couple of years because the Blues, even though he was a great player for the St. Louis Blues, even while he was young, he had a thing with a babysitter that he got acquitted for, but I think there was enough smoke there for the Blues pretty much forced their hand to trade Gilmour to the Flames for what ended up being a whole lot of nothing. So, I think around this time the Blues got Brett Hull from the Flames, so I like to always think of history as saying we traded Doug Gilmour for Brett Hull, because this was about the same time that they switched teams. Again, this is one of many, this is one of the really big 3 trades that the Blues and Flames made. Gilmour going to the Flames, that's one trade. Hull going to the Blues, that's a second trade. And then Phil Housley from Al McInnes a few years later, that was the 3rd big trade. The Blues and Flames pipeline was very beneficial to the Blues, but of course, they also got Gilmour out of it as well. So basically, Brett Hull, Phil Housley for Al McInnes and Brett Hull. Who wins that trade? You be the judge. So that is our 5th episode of Down with O-Pee-Chee in the books. We take a pan over here real quick and you see that my stack of cards, these are all the cards that I have gotten so far. Sergei, our valuable card, is at the very, very, very bottom of this stack of napkins. So I'm going to be making a trip to St. Louis this week, and I will get my box of hockey cards, my catalog book of hockey cards, and these will go to a nice home, I assure you. But in the meantime, you get the Leaning Tower of Cards in the meantime. So that is it. I'm Tom Franklin. Tune in once again for another episode of Down with O-Pee-Chee. And like this video if you do, comment below, subscribe if you are new, and we'll talk to you later.